into the nature of God. In fact, it appears that the tools we created to help us find God serve more as obstacles and hindrances. Those obstacles now stand between God and us. We extend to you an invitation to join Master Eric and Omkar for the weekly program Between God and Us every Sunday evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. exclusively on Sankhya television. Between God and Us. Knowledge to free your soul.
Good evening and welcome to the program Between God and Us. Today we are doing something a little different where I have a lot of questions for Master Eric, and I know normally there's a topic that he starts off with, but we're doing something a little different today where I have a lot of things on my mind and I want to get some answers from Master Eric, and probably the questions I have maybe some of the questions you have as well. So Master Eric, thanks for making time for me and being with me.
Not a problem. And I want to say, first of all, Sitaram, Assalamu Alaikum, Sairam, and good evening, everyone. So I kind of like this. You're going to be running it today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to answer your questions the best that I can. But go ahead and start.
Well, one of the main things I was thinking about recently is that, like you see the news in Trinidad, but all over the world, I think it's the same thing, where it seems that people have a lot of anger, but to the point where it's becoming rage, where sometimes you hear news where people are doing things, and it's unfathomable. You think, how can that happen? And especially when you think, like I will be driving with these people on the road that you see road rage incidences or accidents happening in a way that is it's the first time you're hearing about things like these. Like recently where you just see a fatal accident happen on the highway, the driver just drives off. So the first question for you that I'm curious about is that what is rage? What is anger, firstly? And when does it become rage?
Okay. First of all, we got to go into, that's a good question. What causes it?
Yeah.
Where does it come from? Okay. Within us, we're conditioned by society, schools. But then besides all of that is the pressures and the phobias from society that's coming on you. So you're seeing a lot of people, and I'm saying a lot, you're correct. As you go down the road, you're seeing it. When you're in a store, you're seeing it. People are walking with a rage. They're going home with a rage. That's why domestic violence has shot up. Okay, do you know where all this collects within the body? In your mind. It's divided by 3. You have the lower mind, the middle mind, and the higher mind. So, and we'll get into the show a little bit later, but when you do meditation, do you know people aren't even aware of how much anger is inside you? And how much hatred? Maybe you got fired on a job. You don't have finance. You're tipped off because you got family hungry. There's thousands of different reasons why people would, lash out. But in the lower mind is where all this stays. Your phobias, your fear, your hatred. And if you're not in control of that, you can snap. So a while back, the case with the 4-year-old daughter that got her head cut off. From the information that's on the news, people didn't portray the man that way. But something snapped. What made him do it? Okay? And the negative that's on the earth right now, because it's Kali Yuga, it's enforcing it. So you have to learn how to go into the lower mind and clear that out. But the normal person don't know how. Yoga don't do it. So actually identifying where it came from, I can accurately say everything that's around you conducts rage. So it could be your spouse, it could be your kids, but it's something they did. But before you trip off, work. You lost your job. The creditors are after you. They're ready to take your home. And then when this comes up, it's an overload. And they'll snap. So there's thousands of reasons why people would snap. And it causes impatience. People that is in a rage, like road rage, they don't have patience. You might be driving too slow. They try to overtake you, but they can't. I had that happen to me in the past. And then he pulls sideways in front of me to stop me. Come leaping out of the car. So what I'm saying, you don't know. That's why I say try to be a good person. Don't put fuel on a fire. Don't fight back or talk back or cuss back. That's what they want. Okay, but people need to start learning now how to subdue the anger and fear within you.
What's the first step you think to make as somebody, let's say somebody, if you're looking at it from both sides, where like you're self-aware a bit and you know that you're angry, or you feel that you have a temper. A lot of people, I think, like they'll say, like, if I get angry, I trip off. Or if I get angry, people have to take cover. So a lot of people I hear, they are at least aware that when they get angry, they get really angry. So then what is the first step in probably mitigating it or minimizing the level of anger?
I have a lot of people that come in here for counseling. And that's one of the things that we help them with. It's usually a combination of a couple things that we work on. Now, one thing is to identify as the individual, you actually have a problem. It's almost like alcoholism. Some people drink and say they're not an alcoholic, but their actions and everything change when they drink. So usually when they come in, I have the husband and wife. He'll say one thing, she clears it up. So I ask him, are you a slow bumblebee to get mad? Or are you a Jep? And he usually says a little bit of both. The wife will say Jep, right? Then what goes along with the temperament is what is stored within you. So people go through traumas. It could be relationships, job, it could be an accident, it could have been anything. Or it could be family members taking you to court. It's really taking a toll on you. Well, the first rule is you don't let that situation get inside here. The first rule is when you identify a situation, you keep it at a distance and deal with it. But if you let it inside, it's storing up. Now, something is going to trigger it that you see. Going to bring that feeling back up. And you'll snap. So, you have to learn, I am having classes in May. What is the process of letting go of these traumas within you? These feelings, which creates hatred, anger, all the stuff we're not supposed to keep. Once you learn how to dispose of it, you feel light. Now, my wife has an example. She teaches people in the class. She'll have a 5-pound bag of flour, and she'll hand it to the person. Say, now carry that around everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. That's the anger inside you. So give them another 5 pound. This is the hatred. Another one. This is the jealousy. Do you know when you store this within you, you are sleeping, working, with the family, at work, with all this you're carrying. So when you're able to let it go, you're like a different person. You know, so we are going to have classes in May. And if people are interested, they could write us. But it's to let people know what is the process. Because everybody that comes in here, they say, I went to the psychiatrist, I went to the doctor, and they say you have to let go. But then the person says, okay, I hear that. But what is the process? And that's a whole class, a whole day, okay, to go through. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
This show deals a lot with religion and spirituality. But you just say, well, you know, yoga doesn't help, in a sense, with dealing with...
No, yoga is always good, don't get me wrong.
Right.
And it takes you to a certain level. But what they don't teach, like when I do meditation, teach meditation classes, I've had people that's done yoga for 15 years in the class. And after the 5th session, they said they've already passed what they learned in 15 years. The reason is, do you know what the first 3 classes are about? What meditation is really about. You don't start to meditate. And then I get them to the point to where when they see total darkness. Now, my main man right here watching the show, he'll tell you, when he got to that point, pure darkness. I said, now, jump like you're on a diving board in a pool. And I'm going to help you with mantras. And you're going to go into the lower mind. I'm going to say this, you just look over and confirm it. When he went into the lower mind, it scared the crap out of him. Of all that stuff you weren't even aware of. Yeah. That feeling, tensions, hatred that was in there. Then I taught him how to clear it. Because how can God come to you if you're storing all of this? And if you're actually only communicating with that part of your mind, that means, and the old saying is, that your superconscious mind is always at war with your physical mind. So you're more into the physical when you're in the lower mind. So let me give you an example. You go somewhere, and that intuition inside you is, the feeling you're getting is, something isn't right here. I need to back up or leave the place. But your physical mind kicks in and try to justify why you should still go in. So when people listen to the physical mind, a lot of times the choice is not a good choice. And I've been averaging, when I see people do it, 90% chance when you listen to your intuition, things go good. So you have to dive in. You cannot expect to meditate and go different realms when you're still holding and carrying all this baggage within you. There's no way. So a lot of people flatline when they get to a certain level. And some of them are happy with it because they still feel a little peace, but they're not experiencing the different realms. And this is how you break that barrier.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is being a religious person helpful with rage and anger and stuff like that? Or is it something you have to do through other means? The reason I ask is because, to me, I know a lot of people who are religious but angry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if it's a point that even if you are religious that you get past anger, or is it something that you need to do different, like you need to do differently?
Okay, first of all, as you live, you have, one thing that makes a person angry is being attached, likes and dislikes.
Okay.
If somebody goes against you and what you like, you get upset. You get defensive. If somebody likes something but you dislike it, causes a rift. Religion is a guideline. Okay? Now some extremes go a little bit beyond that. They're going to say this is the word, only the word, blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't the intention of scriptures. If you notice, Hindus don't really classify themselves as a religion. Neither does the Tibetans or the Buddhists. They class it as a way of life. It's a guideline. It's a tool. But here's the problem we have today. Let me give you an example. I think I did this either on my podcast or maybe one of the first shows we did last year. I was living in the West. I'm not going to say where. So that could be PT Valley, Diego Martin, West Mornings. And there was a church close by. So I was on my balcony, drinking my coffee, Sunday morning. And I'm hearing the sermon. It was pretty good. And people were singing the hymns and everything else. But the parking lot is small. So when church let out, traffic jam. Do you know from where I was sitting, people roll down their window and say, "Move your mother," and F this and F that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, didn't you just come out of this? We're, learning how to be a better person. But as soon as they left that place, their old selves came back. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. You don't have to be a fanatic. But if you believe, let's say in Christianity, Jesus Christ, study how Jesus was. Just don't look at the stories. What was he trying to put out to people? And 9 times out of 10, it was being good to humanity. Don't condemn. Don't judge. Love thy neighbor. Love thy enemies. So when we hear this, what does our psyche do? It's filtered. Why? Through the physical mind. People that hasn't cleared the lower mind cannot go to the higher self, the higher mind, to the superconsciousness, which is the link to your soul. This is where they get flatline. So a lot of it is the conditioning of what we're taught, what we see, how we think we should be. Now, in the negative era, which is the Kali Yuga, humans know this is the negativity time of the 4 ages. So they think they have to be super defensive. They have to be a certain way to survive in this world. But in reality, no. Have you ever heard people say, oh, I should be, I could be, I want to be this or whatever? But the way Jesus talked, he said, don't say that. Just be. Don't put conditions on just being a good human. Just do it. So religion, I can't blame religion as a factor for people's temperament. Every religion has the good in it. The scriptures, how to be a good person, how to forgive. But do people nowadays forgive, Omkar? Very rare. They're still holding a grudge. You know, and the question is why? Because didn't we have a show that the most precious thing in life is time? Yeah. So if you're not talking to somebody for 25 years, then how much time have you wasted? Because you're holding that grudge. I had a woman I know that the siblings didn't get along. And they always tried to make this one break down. And they came over with the kids listening. And the lady cussing, and said, I hope you die. I'll be the first one to your funeral. In front of the kids. Do you know what the lady said to them? You know what? I love you. And it totally threw that person off balance. That person was expecting you to argue, fight, or whatever. Mm. So that person was showing the way scriptures tell you to be. But don't be overran. Sometimes you got to stand your ground, but in a tactful, respectful way. Do not lower yourself to other people's level. You have to remain calm. Remember we talked about that? Yeah. Calmness is power. People that I see that get angry, the first thing comes in my mind, look how weak they are. Okay? So, religion is good, but like I said, it's the basis to go to spirituality and to learn more and learn how to control your desires, your feelings, your emotions. And then you'll start seeing life a lot different and things will start to go smooth.
One thing these days I'm thinking about is things like, you know, they say social media, but not just social media, but like people addicted to stimulation, so that we are overstimulated now and it leading to people being, well, I have it, which is, you know, you wake up tired or you're not motivated the same way as, let's say, when you were younger. What do you think, let's say, are people or are we becoming more addicted to the world and stimulation?
So let me ask you a question. You asked me one about bouncing one back at you. How many young people today do you see when they go home put down the cell phone and not go on it?
Nobody. Yeah.
Right. How many people And we talked about it 3 weeks ago. Sit at the dinner table with their parents and eat together without an iPad, a phone, or something beside them.
What?
Right. What it does, social media is designed to draw you in. And do you know what's bad today? When I grew up, it was simple. We didn't have cell phone. We didn't have internet. You have one landline in the house. If you miss a call, you miss a call, right? But people today, every second, it seems like they're afraid they're going to miss something. They have to gravitate and be on top of everything that's coming to them on the internet. Emails, everything. Okay? But mainly it's chats. Okay? So that's why in the Senate in the US, Congress is going to pass a bill's law. The debate is how much hours a day should a child be on social media? Because they see it's changing the beyond Generation X. It's changing them. So I heard a man the other day, and even a pundit mentioned it last night, and I agree, that I'm a firm belief that if you live life, living life in complete moderation, you'll be good. But if you live on social media, you're going to end up creating a problem. And we're losing contact, social talking skills, because they're chatting. If you take a person that chats 10 hours a day and you stand them in front of a church, I want you to read this chapter sermon today. They'll freak out because they don't know how to relate to the public physically. Okay, that's just an example. But I would like limitations on social media for a certain age down. And I would like the parents to take more responsibility, which we talked about it, and spending quality time with your children. Develop common sense. Show them how to do things. Nature. Go camping. You know, there's a lot of things you could do with children. You could even teach them a certain amount of survival skill in case something drastic happens in Trinidad. You know, but it's not being done. And the parents are a lot of the fault because kids are quiet when they're on social media.
Yeah.
But you start taking that iPad away, see what happens, or that cell phone. You know, so we have to be very cautious when it comes to children and social media.
Okay. But along that same vein, right? Like, let's say being tired and unmotivated from whatever activity. So let's say you're not a person that living an unhealthy lifestyle physically, in terms of not eating too bad, not like you're still moving around a little bit, but you're still feeling drained and demotivated. Is that something to do with the physical, mental? What do you think?
It could be a factor of both.
Right.
And it could be spiritual.
Right.
So let me give you an example. Some people come in here and they do have a slight medical problem. And it normally deals with the thyroid. And then when we do the scan, we see that the thyroid is underactive. Now, when the thyroid is underactive, The pineal gland, it's always in communication with the thyroid gland. And the pineal gland will say, okay, you've made enough of this hormone. But technically you haven't. And it's treatable. Okay, that will make you lazy, tired, not motivated. You don't even care to get up and sweep the floor. You know? Then you could have a sleeping disorder where people just can't go to sleep. Their mind is always racing, so they wake up tired. Then you have another category. And if you
with that, you mean like deep sleep to get rest? If the mind running, let's say...
They're not even sleeping yet.
Okay.
They're in a semi-awaking state.
Okay.
Okay.
So they're lying down, their eyes closed, they're sleeping.
They're trying to sleep.
But they're not there.
They can't sleep.
Okay.
Okay. Then there's another factor involved. So we go over all the factors when people come in here. And then I ask the question, do you see shadows in the house? And quite a few people say yes. And I'll say, so when you do go to sleep, and let's say you got 6 hours of sleep, do you still wake up drained? They say, all the time. All the time. Now, we've already done the scan. We've already seen what issues they have. Now, if the thyroid's good, the pineal gland is good, and this comes in, Omkar, how do you think a spirit survives? They don't eat. They don't drink.
Right.
So how do they survive?
Of energy?
Of your energy.
Okay.
While you're asleep. So when they're pulling your energy, you're going to be drained.
Yeah.
So then we take steps to just verify if that's the case. Mm-hmm. So it could be medical, could be emotional trauma that you don't even know what's storing in your lower brain. Mm-hmm. You're consciously unaware of it. But then people keep saying, I can't, my mind keeps racing. Some people say they feel nervousness. Where do you think anxiety comes from? From the lower mind. Because you haven't got rid of all that hatred, anxiety, fear, hatred, everything. You know, once you clear that out, I've seen many cases where they don't get anxiety attacks anymore. But why isn't this being taught? I keep saying this every program. Why isn't this information getting out? Not the procedures, because that takes a whole day to go through. And once you go through it, you have the written information, you remember the lecture, and the exercises we do. And once you do that, people say their lives change. You know how sometimes little things bother you? Just little stupid things.
Yeah.
But when you start clearing the lower mind, you'll start laughing at yourself and saying, man, I was stupid for getting upset at that thing. You know, you don't let things get to you. This body you have to protect, not just physically. You have to protect it within to clear the garbage that we collect every day. The middle mind is what you call the data collection center. It's collecting everything we do every day. Everything. Everything we say, everything we sense, every emotion that we experience. And there's a filtering system. And if you're not connected to the higher mind, the filter directs the negative parts to the lower mind. And then the middle mind is the one where you're supposed to learn how to connect to the upper mind to connect with the Akashic records and the soul and God. But a lot of people haven't reached that state. And it's sad because the steps are here, is being taught. You know, I know people out there, some of them are hungry for this. They're yearning for it, but they just don't know what to do. So I know I kind of carried on the conversation a little bit on that question. But within life, do you think there's only one variable or two?
No.
It's unlimited variables that we experience every day. But how do we deal with these variables, these experiences, these situations that we go through? Are we trained to deal with it? Or are we like a donkey with donkey goggles and walk right into it? You know, and then it's hard for us to deal with the situation. So when it comes to suicide, if you've done what I've just said, suicide would never enter your psyche. A lot of cases, if a person with a bad temper learns how to clear it, do you know the domestic problems in Trinidad would drop drastically? Because you're learning how to control. And then when you learn how to control, you start learning what are the consequences if you do the action. People don't know the consequences. They don't. They may do it, but nothing really happens to them. But beating a woman, there are serious consequences in the spiritual world. So when you leave here, you're going to face certain beings before you can travel. So people just don't want to be, don't say you should be. Don't dance around the flower garden.
Yeah.
Walk through it. Do it. Be it.
Okay.
So what's your next question?
Well, something I wonder in that kind of following along where, you know, a lot of people, let's say it's hard to find a purpose in life. Does these things tie into preventing you, or is purpose something separate from?
What do you mean? Not knowing your purpose, does that prevent you? Is that what you're asking?
Like, well, we just cover like apathy, like you're feeling tired, you're feeling unmotivated, you don't want to do anything, but then trying to figure out your purpose in life. So let's say, like you mentioned, you have stuff stored in your lower brain. Might lead to anxieties, might lead
Fears,
to depression.
phobias.
Yeah.
A lot of different categories.
That might lead to you feeling unmotivated or lacking energy to move on with life.
And why would that be? Look at the weight you're carrying.
Right.
Look at the weight you even have when you're asleep.
Right.
Everything you do, you're carrying that. And haven't you seen very stressed out individuals?
Yeah.
They don't have much energy. You're losing your energy through emotions. Mm-hmm. Okay? Remember, Earth was made as the learning and testing grounds for us, not for God. How is God going to be tested and learned? He developed everything. And we're being observed every day. Are we going to get through this situation? Or are we going to go in it and be like we're in quicksand? Are you going to try to help yourself? Or are you just going to whine and complain? See, this is where the training comes in. You have to fight. But not physical fight. You have to fight within yourself. My guru always said, within yourself, you have good and you have bad. And you are the one who determines which one becomes dominant. So this is where the training comes in. But if people are being trained, can we blame them? No. A lot of people don't even know how to cope with it. They're trying, but they're not succeeding. And this is what's leading to a lot of these rages you're seeing out here.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when things get bad, they start losing hope. And they're doubting that they're even going to get out of this dark hole until somebody comes along and gives them assistance and showing them how to get out of the black hole. But how many people do that when we're driving down the road? Or we hear somebody going through this? Do you actually hold out a hand and try to help them? Or point them to where to go? No. So where's the humanity that should be within all of us? I don't care what race, what religion, or what category of society the person's in. We're supposed to help.
I wonder if, because what I'm thinking is, that's something that's supposed to be taught, let's say early on, like childhood. Because even when you look at a lot of young children, they have no energy, or they're acting up, you know, like how teenagers, they say teenagers act up, or even young children, they act up, they throw tantrums. But what are the basic tools then that you think we should learn? Because
we talked about that 4 shows ago.
Yeah.
The upbringing of a child in the early years is the most critical time of that person. You even said it. A child, a baby, as it's starting to get 1-year-old, 2-year-old, they're like a sponge. They're absorbing what they're seeing. They're absorbing what they're hearing. They're absorbing the emotions of the people around them. So we need to start from early age. Every child throws a fit. I know I did when I was young, right? But there has to be some type of discipline. Some type. Okay, not beat your child, but discipline. Okay, if you let a child demand its way throughout his age, do you know what that person is going to be like when he grows up? Not a good person. He's going to stamp or trample on everybody he knows to get what he wants. Okay? No, discipline has to be installed at an early age. And parenting is a must. That's why we talked about before. We're not seeing families, parents have real good quality time with their children. Is the child comfortable enough to be able to go to the father or mother and talk to them about anything, knowing that they won't get a negative reaction back? 8 times out of 10, it's no. So, and then you teach your child what is right from wrong. Now they're going to school. So now they're learning what society says, what their peers are saying. There's peer pressures to do certain things in school. Now that starts to confuse the young person. And they want to fit in. So now they're joining what's going on. You know, but you've told them younger, try not to go this direction. But this is what you call the learning curve of the first stage of life. And we're going to have that show, the 4 stages. So the first remedy is how you bring up your child. That helps. So did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to go a little bit more into discipline. Because a lot of people, when they hear discipline, you just said, is that not beat the child, but
I'm
self-control.
talking black, blue. You may have to give them a whack on the butt.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or there's other ways to discipline.
Yeah. But I think in discipline in terms of self-control. What I mean self-control, like you develop a routine where you teach the child about the importance of self-control.
And not to be lazy.
Yeah.
So you give them chores every day. Mm-hmm. They wake up, they do their chores, they eat breakfast, they go to school. When they come back, they have certain chores to do, then their schoolwork, and then they eat, and maybe have an hour on social media. Yeah. I have a person right now, which she told me what she's doing. And she has a teenager daughter. The daughter's 14. Mm-hmm. The daughter started acting a little different. Not the way she raised her. Well, it's been 2 months now. She took all social media away from her daughter. Yeah. You know the daughter's acting normal now? She's not addicted to social media. Yeah. And then now she's saying she's going to filter the content and limit her on how much time she could be on social media. So she took some corrective action, not beat the person, but she took away what the person valued. And at the time, it's the cell phone and social media. Yeah. And she said, it's working. She said, Master, it's working. I didn't have to hit my daughter or cuss my daughter. I just took corrective action. Yeah. So there are ways to correct a child.
What's your opinion on pleasure? Now, the reason I phrase it like this is because, like using social media, people think, you get some form of pleasure or satisfaction from using it, right? So it's not just about, like, long time when you say pleasure, you're either talking about sex or food or something like that. But now it's simple as using the phone, right? So, because like now, one of the popular things on social media is seek power and discipline, not pleasure. And that's a saying now, right? But what's your opinion?
But what type of power?
Like self-control, like discipline, like what we're talking about. But then what's your opinion on pleasure itself as for the human being? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it something that we should avoid seeking? Like, what's your opinion?
Okay. So let me ask you a question before I answer the question. Right. Why is it human nature to find happiness from the exterior environment, stimulation from the external environment? Why is it that we think things out here or people out here is truly going to make us happy? And when you start learning spiritualism, one of the things is those who rely on exterior happiness can never find true happiness. It's only momentary happiness. And you have to learn how to love yourself. People latch on to things because they're not happy with themselves. They want to be a part of something that makes them happy. But it's futile. So the first step, and the question you asked me, and I forgot to answer it, and I'm sorry, is you're saying, do people really find their purpose in life? But before you find your purpose in life, you have to find out, who am I? After you can answer and truly understand who you are as an individual and love yourself as an individual, now you're on the path to discover what your purpose really are. A lot of people mistaken their purpose or their identity by their ego, their pride. That's who they justify who they are. But that's not who they are. That's experiences that they've gained in life. And they've become that experience. The only time you will know who you truly are is when you learn how to connect with your inner soul. Then you understand that everything that we do, certificates, schooling, jobs, marriage, having children, everything you do out here in life are experiences. We're learning as we go, correct?
Yeah.
But that's not your true self. If you walk down into the supermarket and you say, hey, I've seen your face before. Who are you? That's where you get them. And they'll say, well, I'm poverty. Sing. Say, poverty, sing. Say, that's who you truly are? And they'll say, yeah. So you'll spell out the letters and say, you are an accumulation of letters? Didn't you exist when you came right out of the womb and you weren't even named yet? Didn't you exist? That's not your true self, who you are. The only way you're going to know is when you make that connection. Some people will say, oh, I'm the doctor in Chaguanas, on this road. What is he doing there? He's not telling you who he is. He's identifying who he is by title. So that's why I said, living in the world, we need to have schooling. We have to have certificates.
Yeah.
But don't live on it. You do it as a living, but that's not technically who you are. You can have doctors that don't even know how to do it. You can have scientists say they're good in neurology, but actually they're not good in it. But they'll dwell on the title, so they refer themselves as this, but technically you're not. You have to understand that you, the real you, not your personality, is your soul. And what you should be trying to do is connect to the soul to understand. You hear it. You hear it in Hinduism, Christianity, every religion. Doesn't it say, know thyself? They all refer to that. Know thyself. But they don't explain to the people, what does that mean? Can you define what? Who you truly are? Do you realize this is just a vessel? And it's carrying the real you inside of you? And that your personality is made up from all the experiences that you learned during life. And there's nothing wrong. You're supposed to learn from your experiences.
Yeah.
Right? But that don't identify. So once you understand, now you can start seeing the truth of what your real purpose is.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was wondering how it ties back in to the mind holding on to, because beside anger and rage, I guess
your desires.
Desires and love.
Desires,
love.
everything.
Because when people say, well, they love this person, they can't do without this person, or they love this thing, they can't do without this thing.
Oh God, don't even get into that subject. I could have a whole show on that word love.
Yeah.
Do you know love is one of the most abused words
Yeah, imagine
that there is? And the younger generations, I don't even think they understand what it truly means. Because how many people you say, And you'll hear them say it 100 times about different things. Oh God, I love that song, right? Or I love this food. But when they go to another restaurant, they say, oh God, I love this food. Yeah. Okay, and then they look at their wife or the one they're with and look at them and say, baby, I love you. Which love? When couples come in here for counseling, I'll ask them. I'll ask the man, do you love your wife? He'll say, well, I used to love her more earlier, but we're going through X, Y, Z. And then I'll ask the wife, I'll say, do you love your husband? She'll say, yeah, we have difficulties, but I love him. Then I'll say, now let me ask you the real question. Are you in love with her? And I ask her, are you in love with him? And they can't answer it. The word love is used very loosely in life. And the other word is, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. That's abused. You know, so, yes, you're right. But a lot of teaching has to happen. Yeah. Because if we let the external forces interfere in our bubble and we're swayed to do what they do because of their position, job, or whatever, now you're changing yourself to be like them, to fit in. Remember the time we talked about how many hats does a person wear per day? Yeah. So when you're at home and you're by yourself, oh God, you're loose. You're loose. Yeah. You have a routine. You might even walk through the house naked, go into the fridge, whatever. And you talk a certain way, yeah. Right? But now you're dressing to go to work. Well, that real you that's at home has just changed. Now your personality gets into the work, wearing the work hat. And let's say after work, you got a function to go to with highfalutin people. You go home, shower, make yourself up. Well, men don't really make ourselves up, but we dress good. Women make themselves up. Now, when you enter that function, you put on another hat. You're going to act a certain way. You're going to speak a certain way to fit in. So, do people in reality nowadays, are they remaining consistent? Are you being your true self everywhere you go? Do you speak the same way everywhere you go? Or do you alternate your personality to fit in the conditions that you're in? See, this is where people are losing themselves. So the question is, Omkar, how can you find out who you truly are? Or how can you find out your reason of being here, your purpose? If you're not being yourself throughout every day. That's a big question. Yeah. So I always tell people, be who you are, no matter where you go. So, Omkar, I'm glad you asked these questions. And everybody, I hope this kind of gave you some information that we didn't go over during the past shows. And we wish you a great, safe week. I know it's Sunday night, so the weekend's almost done. But be productive during your week and see if you can be a better human and show humanity to people around you during this week. Omkar, it's been a pleasure. And we will see you next week.
God. Has any word in human history been more influential? Mankind has created religion after religion, written book after book, all in an effort to satisfy our quest for knowing God. Now, after many millennia, mankind is more at a loss to the nature of God. In fact, it appears that the tools we created to help us find God serve more as obstacles and hindrances